Welcome to the Valhalla Filmcast, a show where normal guys talk about the films that they love. And here are your hosts, Bryce Thompson, Brian Hammond, and Cody Ryrie. Now get ready, because the show starts in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Valhalla Filmcast. This is Cody Ryrie, just back from a Thursday evening screening of Rogue One, a Star Wars story, the earliest screening I could get to, and I'm here with just my initial thoughts after the movie. This will be a short little recording just to give you my first impressions. First thing you ought to know, this is a totally spoiler-free quick review. There will be nothing revealed in this review that wasn't revealed in the earliest trailers. I'm even going to stay away from stuff that was revealed in some of the later trailers. Just nothing that will spoil the movie, hopefully, if you haven't seen it yet. Although I think most people are going to go out and see this one over the holidays. So let's just dive right into it. The good. The things that I liked about the movie. And first off, I guess I should say, I am always harshest on my first view of something. I don't know, something about my personality. The first time I see something, I always am super critical. And then, as I see it again and again and again, I find more things to enjoy most of the time. And I fully expect this to be that way. That being said, I really enjoyed the movie. I think most people that go see it will. It's a very crowd-pleasing, a very, a very emotional, very well-crafted movie. The audience I saw it with really seemed to enjoy it. I mean, that was an early Thursday audience, so that's your core group of interested Star Wars people. But I think that will translate to most other people as well. You don't have to be a Star Wars nut or a Star Wars aficionado to know what's going on. It all makes sense. It's all new characters in this story. They're introducing new characters, and then there's some connections to characters we see in the other Star Wars films. If you don't, or you're not familiar with Rogue One, it's the story of how the original Death Star from the 1977 Star Wars movie, how the plans for that were stolen by the rebels and given to Princess Leia for her to put in R2-D2, and that sends the whole first Star Wars movie off on its story. This is the story of how the group of rebels gets together and steals those plans. They're led by a character named Jyn Erso, and she is kind of this rebel from the rebellion and gets wrapped up with this kind of Dirty Dozen-esque group that's going to go off and try and steal these plans. So that's all I'm going to tell you about the story, because there's a lot of surprises in there. I don't want to ruin them. The earliest trailers did show that we're going to see Darth Vader, so I won't say anything about his appearances other than what I thought of them. So yeah, I don't think you have to be too worried about spoilers on this one. First off, the good. What I liked about the movie. The look of the film is very interesting. As far as it comes to the editing and the cinematography, they do not follow the standard Star Wars formula. So in all the other 7 Star Wars films, you had very steady camera, very stately camera. You have a lot of wipes and dissolves, where the one picture kind of wipes the other picture away. These kind of old-fashioned movie ideas that were originally used by George Lucas to harken back to Flash Gordon in the early 30s sci-fi serials. And that's gone all the way up into the most recent one, Star Wars The Force Awakens, have all kept that. Now, this movie jettisons that style choice. That I noticed, there are no wipes, there are no dissolves, there are no irises, none of the fancy editing changes. It's just cut, 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 cut. And also the film is not entirely handheld, but a lot of it is handheld. So when you get into the bigger battle scenes between the rebels and the Empire, it has a kind of gritty, as much as it can, it's a PG-13 film, but it has a gritty, kind of Saving Private Ryan-esque feel to it, because there's a lot of this. It doesn't get into shaky cam either. If you're worried about the very Jason Bourne shaky camera thing going on, it's not that shaky, not anywhere close to that shaky. I don't think that will be an issue for you if you have a problem with those kinds of movies, but it is just you notice it more because it's a Star Wars film. And I liked the look of the film. I thought it was neat that they tried to do something different with this one to differentiate it from the actual chapters. Other things I liked. The actors are really good. Felicity Jones, who plays Jyn Erso, she really hammers home some of the emotional moments. I bought the relationship she had with the second-in-command kind of rebel guy, Diego Luna. They had a really good rapport together. That being said, also the martial arts star Donnie Yen is in the film. He plays a kind of Force-sensitive, he's not a Jedi, but a Force-sensitive kind of blind samurai monk character. He brought a lot of humor to the film and a lot of heart to the movie. He did a great job. Also, another standout, Alan Tudyk, I think that's how they say his name. He voices the robot in the film, which is originally an Imperial robot that's reprogrammed to work for the Rebels. And he also brings a good deal of the humor that is in the film to it. I said that I was going to talk about the Darth Vader shout-outs that are in the film. They work very well. They actually got James Earl Jones to come back and lend his voice to the character again. And the look of the character is very 1977 original Darth Vader-esque. A neat little bit, I guess this might be the tiniest of spoilers, but only if you're a huge Star Wars nerd, so skip 3 seconds past. You get to see Darth Vader in his palace that was originally drawn by Ralph McQuarrie in concept art for the original Star Wars trilogy and then was never used. I've seen those original sketches. They're really gorgeous, and they got to fully realize those in the film. So that's a really deep shout-out for the nerdiest of the nerdies who watched this movie. But that was cool for me because that was one of my favorite designs that never got used for Return of the Jedi, and we get to see it fully realized here. So yeah, the relationships in this film, I want to get back to the acting, they really do work. I guess that connects with the production design. While it did take me a minute to get used to this new handheld style, and it didn't feel like a Star Wars movie at first. It felt like some other kind of science fiction film that happened to have stormtroopers in it. I got over that. And the production design is done very specifically to look like the original film, very put together by hand. And, they pulled pieces off this and pulled pieces off that and kind of made it on a homemade kind of dirty, down-to-earth kind of way. That's really carried over, and that's what kind of got me past that initial, this doesn't feel like Star Wars kind of a thing, and I had to get over that. The relationships as well, I did say that they work well, and they do, and the actors do a great job, but it takes some time for those relationships to build. You compare that with, like, The Force Awakens. Daisy Ridley's character, Rey, she's somebody that she's so well introduced, and she's so well performed, and the same thing with basically all of the new characters in Force Awakens. You kind of instantly really are with them. In this one, they're much a pricklier bunch. They're harder to love, and so it takes more time to get into it, but it does work. That also brings me to some of the other things that maybe didn't work as well for me, keeping in mind that I hate things more the first time I see them, and then I like them as I go back and see them again. But on the hypercritical side, the movie takes some time to get going. It felt like it's kind of stuttered towards the beginning when it came to the characters, when it came to the relationships, when it came to the pacing of the plot. It took some time for me to get into this. It was almost like ripping the Band-Aid off of a Star Wars movie that's not about Jedi and it's not about Skywalkers. It's about these other things, and it took me probably a good 45 minutes to get over that weird feeling of this is Star Wars, but it's not Star Wars. And I think the script didn't help. There are some things at the beginning of the film that take some time to get going. And I think as I go back and watch it again, this will be a minor complaint. But it was hard on me for the first viewing, not knowing where it was going to go. Now, when you know where it's going to go, I think it might be a little more forgiving. So keep that in mind as you watch it. That lack of the Force characters and Jedi, I did miss that when I watched the film. Now we're going to get a lot of that in the other chapters, so I guess I shouldn't be so greedy. But that's one of the things that kind of threw me, is I kind of missed that. However, two things. The musical score in this film was done by a man named Michael Giacchino, I think is how you say his name. He's a very famous composer behind a lot of the Pixar films, Up and Ratatouille. He did the new Star Trek films. He does a score for this that is kind of Star Wars and kind of not Star Wars. A few hints to recognized and established themes, mostly original themes. But the score didn't work very well for me. It felt like somebody was trying to do John Williams and not super pulling it off. The style of the film was so different from the Star Wars movie that it almost felt like the music needed to be drastically different, and yet the music wasn't. The music was trying to be regular Star Wars, and there was kind of some dissonance there. Now, that wasn't by any means a fatal flaw, and to be honest, most of the time I didn't notice the music, but the one or two times I did notice it, it wasn't working with the picture as how I was seeing it. That's one thing, and I don't think that's the composer's fault. I think that it was an admirable effort, and from what I hear, he only had like a month to write the entire thing, so it was a good effort. But for me, at least in this first viewing, it didn't totally match what the movie seemed to be trying to do. Again, not enough to really distract me and ruin the movie by any means, but a downfall nonetheless. Now, there's one last thing I wanted to get to that was my absolute least favorite part of the movie, and I think it's silly to say that it ruined the movie. It didn't, but it was really bad. There are one or two moments, and I won't get into spoilers at all on this, but you'll know it when you see it, I think. There are one or two moments when special effects are used to bring characters to life, and that's all I'm going to say. But these one or two moments were done with such terrible special effects and such a level of unreality that I was reminded of a video game like cutscene. They were terrible, and they're really kind of big, important moments, and they really threw me out of the movie in a hard way, and I had to work to get myself back into it. Again, I think that will improve upon further viewings because I'll be expecting it, but it just seemed inexcusable for a movie that has this big of a budget, or to find some other kind of workaround, because these special effects moments, when it came to these characters, did not work in any sense of the word. In fact, they were a distraction. So those, and I can't see that getting any better. So maybe it won't be as bad of an issue as I rewatch the film, but I can't ever imagine thinking it looks good, because there's nothing about it that looks good. It looks eerie and weird and, like I said, video gamey in the middle of a movie that's tried to be very down to earth and film everything with practical effects like The Force Awakens did. Really sticks out like a sore thumb. A really big misstep on the part of the filmmakers to include scenes that looked that bad in the finished film. Now, if you're not a big special effects person, maybe it'll go past unnoticed. If you haven't watched the original films 950,000 times like I have, maybe you won't notice as well, and it'll go right past you. But being a huge Star Wars fan, and having watched those original films, when they try to recreate some of those things from the original film and they don't hit the mark, it was a big distraction. So overall, I don't want you to get the feeling that I hated the movie. I really liked the film. I think I'm going to see it, a couple more times at least, and I think it will fit nicely. Plot-wise, it fits very nicely into the other movies, even if it is different. There was just kind of a ripping the Band-Aid off, like I said, feeling where this is the first time we've done Star Wars, but it not be Star Wars. And it took me a lot of time to get used to that. But definitely see the movie. Like I said, I had fun. The audience I saw it with had a lot of fun. You don't have to be a huge Star Wars fan to get it. If you are a huge Star Wars fan, you're going to get a lot of references that other people aren't going to get, and I think that can deepen and help you enjoy the experience even more. And we would love to hear what you have to think of it. Now, when Bryce and Brian see the film, we're going to sit down. We're going to do a bigger discussion of this and see what they thought as well. They're not as big Star Wars fans. They like it, so it'll be interesting to see what they think of the film. And we'll do a spoiler show as well, so we can get into some of these specifics and really dissect them and get into them, which is the fun thing that we like to do here on the Valhalla Filmcast. I am Cody Ryrie, and we will catch you next time.
The following views, opinions, and commentary are the sole property of the Valhalla Filmcast. Any unauthorized reproduction without prior consent is prohibited. Any incidental music, audio clips, or film trailers are used for the sole purpose of film criticism and commentary as allowed under the Fair Use Act.